Okay, that's fine. So we have science leadership. Is that academy? And Upper Dublin. Okay.
This is your home turf.
Right on. Is there another school here as well? Roxborough.
Were we supposed to have something in writing here, you guys? Oh. No? Okay. So while you're listening, you guys can like jump in. And basically what we're doing is just going over different pitches and talking it through, brainstorming. And if other people have ideas, you can, throw in your ideas. And at the end, we'll have maybe a little bit of time to talk about production and or questions from the mentors. I'm Tammy Teal-Stedman. This is Marty Zeid. We've both worked as producers in television, documentaries, films. We've done, short format things.
Tammy won an Oscar.
Marty won Emmys. We've done, Marty's got a lot of experience with news and documentary and stuff like that, and I have more with short films that are narrative. So I think we can kind of help and answer questions that you have. So we have some time constraints, so we're going to get going. I'm going to read the first one from Science Leadership Academy. 2 bodies decompose in the soil in rural Ireland as the spirits that once inhabited them muse about the meaning of life and death. Wow,
Ooh.
Awesome. Whose is that? Over here, okay. And then the other one is a 9th grade girl who was born without some adult teeth and has gaps in her smile has to navigate the transition to high school and come to terms with her own grin. Interesting. And
That's interesting.
She's not here? Okay. All right. So we'll focus on this one. This is so interesting to me why you chose Ireland. And do you know of some area around here that looks like Ireland where you would shoot it?
No, so I actually wrote the screenplay for a screenwriting unit that we were doing, and I was trying to not limit myself to what I had available to me, and I wanted to write a story that I wasn't necessarily interested in creating. I just wanted to see what I could write.
Awesome. So one of the first things that I like to say when you're doing a short film, especially with a limited budget, is use what you have accessible to you. So if you have access to an office building or a great looking farmhouse or whatever, you might tailor your idea to that. Yours is just the opposite because you made the specific choice for that screenwriting unit to go outside of what you normally would have and choose Ireland. My sister has traveled and lived in Ireland, and she says that in Chester County there are areas that remind her very much of Ireland with like fields and things like that. So I think if you wanted to stick with that idea, it wouldn't be that hard for you to shoot it convincingly in this area. You just have to, in pre-production, drive around and see if you could find some locations that feel like it might fit.
Do you feel like you could execute what this is going to look like? Like showing bodies decomposing?
I feel like if I had access to people who are good at visual and practical effects, special effects, makeup, I could definitely convey stuff that I wrote.
Do you have some people in your school who are into that, learning about that kind of stuff, or would you have to kind of maybe go to a local theater or something? And
Probably a bit of both.
yeah. Okay.
So Tammy and I often talk about for a film to be successful, it needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if you're lacking one of the 3, your film may come up short. So in this one, I got the beginning. I think the middle, I understand. They're going to muse about meaning of life and death. What will happen, and I'm throwing this out there to the group, what would be a suitable ending for this premise? What do you think? You hadn't thought
script
about
written,
that
right?
yet.
So what is the ending?
Well, I actually set it up as more of an experimental, but the ending, the premise is kind of like the process of decomposition is like magically expedited. So as they're having this kind of conscience conversation, they're actively being pulled down further and further into the earth. So as their conversation progresses, they kind of become more one with the earth, and they're getting covered by dirt and soil. So by the end, they're kind of like barely visible. And then it cuts back to like a week later, because that's like a motif of them saying like they're gonna find us in a week. So then a week later, it cuts back and they're just like horribly decomposed and like deflated and just really disturbing to look at, and then somebody finds them.
I have a question. Do you have access to anyone in your school who does animation? Could this be an animated short?
It could be. I think I wanted to play around with like very realistic effects
okay.
on the bodies.
Okay. So you just have to do a lot of pre-production before you commit to doing this to make sure that you can pull it off with the look, you know, the effects.
How are we going to know that the decomposing corpses are speaking with one another? Like, what's that going to look like on screen?
It's all voiceovers. And I think it's assumed that it's
them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it 2 men, 2 women, one of each?
It's a man and a woman, yeah.
A husband and wife?
It's a little bit ambiguous. You assume that they're in love, but it's never explicitly said.
It's interesting. I think you can set the tone too with some sound effects or music or.
You could, in the middle, you could make it, you know, even if you did it for a minute, make an interesting backstory. Maybe about how they became corpses, or how they miss each other, how they miss each other in the flesh, or, you know, something like that. Might be interesting.
Okay.
Just give them a little bit of life, so to speak.
All right. We're trying to keep our time so we can fit all these in and still have some time at the end. Okay. The next one is a 9th grade girl who was born without some adult teeth and has gaps in her smile has to navigate the transition to high school and come to terms with her own grin. You said that person's not here, or no? Okay. So, well, maybe we'll skip that one then and move on so we have a little bit more time to talk at the end.
Okay.
Okay, so next is Upper Dublin. The first one is 2 teenage gangsters are charged with the task of stealing test answers to give to their employer. But when the principal discovers their scheme, they must devise a way to dispose of him. Okay, whose is that? Upper Dublin? Over here?
Yes.
Okay, so that sounds clever. It's sort of like a thriller, or and how are you portraying them as gangsters? How do we get the sense of who they are?
Well, it's kind of like, it's a bit like comedy, but like seriousness, it's kind of, you know, homage to like 1940s organized crime.
Oh, okay.
Oh, those kind of gangsters.
Yeah, and like,
And is it going to be?
Not gangstas.
And is it
Okay.
gonna? It's not going to be actually set in that time. It's just an homage in terms of style, like maybe film noir or something like that. Okay. Okay.
And who is it that they have to dispose
Yeah.
of?
Who's the employer?
well,
Or is it the principal that they have to dispose of?
yeah, the principal, because like, we're still kind of working it out.
Yeah, that's okay. That's what we're doing in here. We're kind of like talking it through, and sometimes other people chime in with ideas, or you know.
So who is the person that's being disposed of? Principal?
Yeah, the principal.
Okay. That doesn't have anything to do with real life now, does it? Okay.
So
Just
explain to
checking.
me about this employer that's in quotes. What does that mean exactly? Is somebody paying them to do this?
Yeah, but like, we're kind of thinking about like, it's like a setup, and it's kind of being like double crossed.
Okay.
And like, we're still kind of working it out. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So for you guys, I think the script is going to be really key to work that all out ahead of time and figure out your setup, your beginning, your middle of what is actually going on, and then the reveal at the end of how they dispose of him, or if, you know, you reveal at the end if there's like a double cross going on, like you said.
Can we help these guys by coming up with an answer to the question of who would be interested in the test scores and would be quote the employer?
Over there?
A rich kid.
Okay.
A student from the same school, and that's how he knows the other 2 students.
Like that? Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. That's cool.
It could be a twist, like that's the principal's kid, and he's actually
Ah,
like, and
that's
that's the double cross, and then like they serve time, like hard time in detention, and then it's like a revenge story of getting like revenge on him. So he-
That's interesting, and adds another element of emotion for the principal, right? That's clever.
I feel like it'd probably be like the school failure. Like he gets in so much, they get in so much trouble, and they just get picked on for no reason. He wants the answers just to not show that can be smarter than everyone else, but just to make sure that the other kids don't find out and like keep all the answers for himself. And
That's
earn
clever,
it
too.
afterwards.
They're all good.
Yeah.
Those are
Can I see a hand over here?
three good ideas.
It could be like
That's good too. She said it could be the assistant principal who wants to take the principal's job. Yeah, blame the crime on the principal in some way, or that he was
Should write this stuff
okay
down
with
so you
it, or-
remember. Oh, you got it? Okay, cool. All right. Now we go to when a struggling high school student discovers a magic sketchbook where everything drawn in it becomes reality. She must choose between the easy way and the right way.
That is so intriguing. That's like a perfect pitch, if you ask me, because it's like, just by reading that, I want to know more about it. Whose is that? Whose story is yours, right here? So how are you going to do the magic sketchbook? With an iPad or something? Or how are you going to...
Well, if you're assuming like it was an actual sketchbook and whatever she drew in it, like would happen in real life rather than just like appear.
Okay, so she's saying it would just be an actual sketchbook, and that, you know, she would draw something in it. And so would you then have like one example of she draws something and you sort of dissolve to or cut to that actual thing happening so the audience gets what's going on there? Okay. All right.
And then I can get the middle and what's going to develop, and we could do a brainstorming session like we just did, what's going to happen at the end.
Is this written, or you're still kind of working through it all? Still figuring things out? Okay. Okay. So I like what you said, that she must choose between the easy way and the right way. What does that mean? What were you thinking? Like, how would it go?
We had a couple ideas. One of them involved like her trying to get some guy to fall in love with her, and then we had like some other major problem, like there's a big test coming up or something like that.
So she's saying that she could use the sketchbook to get somebody that she likes to fall in love with her, or, similar to yours, to get the right answers for tests. Because they can use it for whatever they want, they have to figure out, do they use it for good or for evil? Or maybe they choose to use it in one way, but then there's a twist that it resolves at the end that it wasn't what they had hoped for. It's similar, but not quite what they had hoped for. Any other ideas?
Yeah, anybody? Yep.
I feel like depending on like what life they kind of live, like if they live like an evil life, they probably would draw a bunch of people that they want murdered, or draw people who should have like the same mental illness as them, as if that because they grew up that way. But if they grew up in like a home that they know better in, like their parents treat them correctly and stuff, they probably would draw stuff like food to the homeless, houses to the homeless, helping others and stuff that they need help in instead of using it for themselves. But it just depends on, I just see it on how they grew up in their houses.
Okay. So they'll be influenced by the world around them and what they know, whether they use it for good or evil. Anybody else? Any other ideas?
Okay, let's move on to the third. After surviving a horrific car accident that killed his passenger, a young man must recount the events that led to the dreadful night. Also very interesting premise.
Whose is that? Back there. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of a one timeline kind of split into two parts happening simultaneously. The pre-car crash and post-car crash is kind of like the pre-car crash is him recalling kind of his relationship with a girl, and then the post-car crash is him kind of trying to survive to basically the end, and then it ends with kind of like a twist ending, because there was a passenger with him in the car, and the whole time we don't really know who it is, and we can kind of guess from the beginning that it's the girl, and then there's a twist that's not her.
Oh,
Someone else.
interesting.
And who else?
It's like a different girl that kind of caused the end, because the car crash is kind of supposed to be metaphorical to the end of their relationship.
Great.
And then the girl in the car is supposed to be what caused their relationship.
The one that's revealed at the end?
Yeah, the one that's revealed at the end.
Okay,
That's clever.
that's a good ending.
How are you going to show the car crash?
That was one of the things that was, in the beginning it's just kind of going to be just a static shot of kind of after the car crashes. It's going to be the car like into a pole, or it's not going to be like car on car collision. It's probably going to be something, and then the car's just sitting there, maybe smoke coming out of the front, and then the end is probably I didn't really think of how I was going to show it at the end. It was kind of just going to be the car moving and it just cut to black.
You can do a lot with sound effects
Yeah.
and camera, shaky camera angles,
Yeah.
and then it'll be tough to show a car damaged unless you have access to one that you can kind of like park next to a pole. But
And then use a smoke machine.
yeah, I was going to say, you could be clever and shoot it from behind so that you see it at the pole and there's smoke coming and people get, he gets out, hurt, whatever. You can do it in a clever way that you don't actually have to show the car crash. Any, yeah, I thought I saw a hand over there. Go ahead.
What about the end? The driver finds out that the person who crashed into his car was himself from the future.
Ooh. Ooh. That's pretty cool.
Fit into the John
Yeah.
story.
In the way back.
I'd say at the start, instead of having to like actually show the car crashing, if you just started off with the sound, like it could be just a black screen, and then you hear the sound of a car crashing, and then it opens with the body on the ground, and then plays it into the.
Yeah, I mean, it could start out with just some sound of, look out for that pole. Oh no!
Yeah, I bet you can find car crashing sounds online somewhere and use those.
Part of what we're worried about is the ending, because that's when it's going to actually, the opening shot is hopefully going to be the car just after it crashes, because it's there, that's unconscious.
Right.
Peter,
Okay.
can you describe, he's got kind of a cool effect going on where the guy climbs out of the car, kind of limping, crawling across the street, right? And then a car passes him, and then we kind of jump with an effect where it's him that's driving the car in a previous part of the film.
Yeah,
So in the previous part of the story, we jump in time.
Yeah, so the one part of the story is after the whole post crash is him kind of going through trying to get to this one destination. It's basically him trying to get home, and then he goes to the other girl's house. And the one scene is he doesn't want to get caught because he doesn't want to get in trouble for the car crashing himself. So he has to hide behind another. He sees another car coming as he's kind of crawling away from the crash, and hides behind a car or a tree or something. And as the car is coming by, he kind of it's kind of an edit into that's going into the other time. Oh, it's him with the original girl that he was in the relationship.
Okay.
Okay.
I very much like that idea, but it would be a little bit different. Instead of having like two girls and one guy, how about the guy comes out as like bi or pan or something like that, and instead of a girl in the car with him, it would be like a guy or a non-binary, and the girl would be even more mad at him because he's with another person that's not a female.
Yeah.
'Cause,
I mean,
you know, some
do you
girls
have
like
this?
that.
That's good. Do you have the script written already, or? Oh, you do. Okay, so you're set with the way you're going to do it. I think that's cool what you were talking about that shot. So it's like the audience will feel that he's sort of in the, I guess, the disorientation he feels after the crash. He sees himself riding by with her. I like that. And it'll.
Do you foresee a problem with that? Was my question. Like, is it kind of a neat thing to do, like style-wise, jumping to a previous point in the story? We're kind of not sure if that'll.
If it'll be
play well with the
confusing?
audience. Like, wait, now he's driving the car.
Yeah, it's hard to say without seeing the script and reading it and feeling what that feels like. If I don't know if you have actually the script written from like beginning, middle, end, all set. I feel like it'll give you, if you can write it and read it, I think it'll give you an instinct as to whether that's going to work or not. And you could always shoot it and then not use it. You know what I mean? When you're doing your editing, see if it works or it doesn't work.
Let's hear from Roxborough. Does anyone have a
I don't know
pitch?
if they have any.
No pitches?
I do.
Yep.
So I'm a huge fan of The Office. I
We've-
thought it would be kind of funny if like we showed like what a city school is like in the style of The Office. Like we had the interviews and things like that. A kid saying like, I get bullied a lot. There's a lot of bullying going on here, and then it cuts to him bullying another kid.
That's pretty cool.
Like a mockumentary type thing, they're talking to the camera. Yeah.
So that's an interesting concept, right? And then let's help him move through it So that might be the beginning, possibly part of the middle, and then how would that end?
I feel like it would end on like a sweet note, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like not like a bad, like yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like sweet, like kind of brings everything all together.
Yeah.
Like how does The Office, you know, I know the show, I haven't watched a lot of it. Do they have endings to their stories? Or is it just kind of a continuous?
Like some
thing?
storylines are continuous, like the whole, like the whole Jim and Pam thing that eventually ends, but the Dwight and Angela, that continues throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
Like it depends on which storyline you're talking about.
Yeah, you'll have to wrap yours up, obviously, because it's just a one and done type of thing. But my advice to you would be, even though it's a mockumentary, when you're planning it and writing it, treat it like it's like an actual documentary. So you'll need to know who you're going to do interviews with, and not actual sit-down interviews, but just they're turning to camera or breaking the fourth wall and talking, right?
I have a good idea for the looking up at the camera.
Okay. And then you're going to need to figure out where in the school you're going to shoot it and when, right? And get permission to do all that kind of stuff. And are you going to have people wear a wardrobe that's different than what, or are you just going to get students, you know?
Students.
Yeah, just simplify it, right? Make it as simple as you can. That's good.
So what Tammy is speaking about right now is pre-production. So there are 3 levels of making a film. There's pre-production, which is all the stuff that you line up before you actually shoot. Production, you're shooting. Post-production, you're writing and editing. So again, like having a beginning, a middle, and an end, you have to be buttoned up on all 3 parts of that in order to have a successful film. Like, you don't want to arrive at a location with a half-baked plan. You want to have everything lined up, like, is everyone available at the time you want them to be? Do you have a location where you have permission to shoot? Do you know where people can park their cars if that's a concern? Do you know, do you have someone who's a reliable shooter? Do you have someone who can get sound? Tammy and I talk about the importance of sound in these productions. If you don't have good sound, your film looks amateurish. Okay? Sound is as important as the visual. Do you have someone who knows how to work a microphone that can get good sound for you? What else?
You had said at the beginning, middle, and an end, and you had said writing at the end. Writing at the end is if you're doing a documentary, let's say you shoot some interviews and it informs what you want to have as like your voiceover throughout the whole thing. After you edit it together, sometimes at the end on a documentary, you'll write your voiceover to better explain some of the interviews that you've gotten, and then you'll write that and lay it in. If you're doing a narrative film, though, where there's a script that you're going to have your actors reciting your words, you're going to be writing it in pre-production, or maybe even before pre-production. The writing of the script is the first thing that you're going to do with your narrative structure, your beginning, your middle, and your end. And then you're going to use that script in pre-production to help you figure out, what are the characters wearing? Where do we need to shoot it? Do they have any props like a gun or whatever that we need? And you get all that stuff lined up so that the day that you shoot on set to start, you're going to start shooting everything, you're ready to go. You're well prepared and you're not wasting time, and you can just shoot that whole time.
Can you tell the spaghetti story, because I love it so much?
Spaghetti story?
The scene from the film where they have a food fight.
Oh, I did a feature film called Slow Learners, which is a romantic comedy, and we in the beginning of it's kind of the middle of the film, they have a food fight, and we shot that. We had to shoot it at a restaurant that was closed, and so we shot it in the middle of the night, and the actors started to improv, but we had to have several sets of clothes for them to wear, and we had to have several bowls of spaghetti, because if you think about it, you do one take and they throw spaghetti on each other, you have to stop, they have to take off their stuff, they have to put in the clean up the table, so it's just all stuff that we had to think about ahead of time, because if we hadn't and we shot it once, that would have been all that we could do. So I like to take the script, read it through, imagine being on set, imagine everything that you're going to be shooting, and it gives you the opportunity to kind of like walk through it and think about all the things that you need and make lists of all the things that you need and assign jobs to everybody so that everybody knows what they're doing that day when you're actually there shooting.
And another thing that Tammy and crew had to figure out was, first they had to line up a restaurant. They had to, they had to agree to show up when the restaurant was closed for business that day. So they came, middle of the night. They had to have someone let them in to the restaurant. There had to be someone to unlock the door. That's part of pre-production. That's thinking through all the things that are not only necessary, but all the things that could and can happen. And you have to be prepared for them. So, because time, time is not money for you guys, but time is valuable, so you don't want to waste it. So, I'd like to open the session up to the mentors. Is there anything, or are there things that you guys teach and preach that you would like us to follow up with, or compound your stories with?
I guess my concern is, just from a logistics standpoint, so we're Roxborough High School, we have all of 4 cameras maybe. 90% of what we shoot is in a school hallway with high school age kids. Yet we're going up against schools that seem to have freedom of location. So if we let a camera out and it breaks, it won't get replaced for like a year and a half. Do you guys have a strategy for potentially allowing greater latitude as far as equipment?
Wow.
What do you mean, allowing greater latitude?
Like, is there a way to let our kids use the cameras outside of school?
I mean, I guess that's up to your school. I guess every school district is going to set their own policy.
Yeah, why is it
on
that you can't leave school to shoot?
So, logistically, if a camera breaks, I mean, it's not allowed out of school, like, that's a policy within the school.
You got to get that changed.
But well, good luck. But in addition to that, let's say it breaks, whether it's on school property or outside of school property, it'll take about a year and a half, if that even, to replace the camera. And by replace, I mean that money, when we have a scarcity of resource, financial resource, it's coming from someplace else. If we replace a camera, that means we don't get boom mics.
Right.
Supposing, has anyone ever approached, I'm trying to think what's near, there's a college near Roxborough, St. Joe's maybe, approaching their media department and asking if kids can use their cameras?
Sure, I mean, we could try that. We could try, I don't know if Chestnut Hill College has a media department. Pretty much right.
I'm sure St. Joe's has cameras as well.
How many teams do you have that are you going to have?
So if we shoot in groups of, let's say, 6, there are about, in the senior class, there are distinctly 3 groups that are shooting.
Okay.
But if they overlap, there aren't clicks in the senior class. In the junior class, there are 2 clicks. And then amongst the 10th graders, I would say, so we have about 30 10th graders. And it's just, it's 2 months into the school year, whatever. I'm still sussing them out.
So you don't.
Some of them are pretty corny, though.
You don't know. You don't know exactly. You don't know yet exactly how many teams.
They are by far my most driven class. It's just a matter of getting that knowledge.
I can relate. I'm a graduate of Overbrook High School, so I know the whole public school scene. It's not easy. Yes, you have a question?
I have a suggestion.
Okay.
She's got a suggestion
Quiet, please.
here.
So you were saying like you have limited like resources for like cameras and like equipment, but I was watching
And
this.
we have liability on where those resources can be deployed.
No, of course. I was watching this YouTube video, and a lot of I don't know if your students have the newer iPhones, or at least from like iPhone 8 and up, they're almost like DSLR cameras, and it's like, I mean, I suppose you could, if it's sound is an issue, you could always record it with like the Apple headphones and just use that as a mic and then like layer it over top of your video. But if your students are able to do handheld with an iPhone, and obviously the iPhone is their property, so they can film outside of school, and then I guess it would just also has to go into like editing, and you have to make sure your previous shots from your iPhone match up with the camera shots that you have.
I mean,
But
and
that's
that,
just-
fortunately or unfortunately, is like potentially a strategic plan for years to come, is to target the advancements in cell phones. So instead of maybe buying like one of the boom lights that are over there, buying stuff that is specifically meant for cell phones. So we, for example, we have a gimbal.
It's a great idea.
That is meant specifically for cell phones. So
Uh-huh.
it only costs $300, where if we lose that, it's not like us losing a $4,000
Right.
fine beat mark.
Right. And if
That's a great suggestion
it
by
is.
you.
And if the idea is learning about filmmaking, right? It doesn't matter if it's on an iPhone. You're still going through all the same steps. You're still working on the script and the narrative arc and pre-production and showing up and thinking about shots and all that. So, I mean, I've seen a feature film that was shot on a, there was a documentary that won the Academy Award, Waiting for Sugarman, I think, and it was shot entirely on an iPhone.
There's a very adult film called Tangerine that was shot by
Oh, yeah,
my
right.
brother.
Yeah, yeah.
That was shot on an iPhone 5.
Yeah.
And we have targeted that software that can kind of up the image
Yep.
quality and the grading
Yep.
of cell phone video.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
It's a great solution, yeah.
I would try the college route, because sometimes colleges want to be part of the community, however they can.
And we're required to try to teach our kids the sort of professional grade equipment as well. So even if they, they be gaining that storytelling experience and that production experience, we still have to teach them, DSLR, mirrorless, the exposure.
Right.
Right.
Right. So with the ones that you have, you can go through that, but then out in the field maybe, then they can expand with the iPhones and supplement that. Any other mentors have questions or thoughts? I saw a hand go up here. What's that?
I'm not.
No, I know, but did you have a question?
I don't know. I just wanted to say that, like, something I'm really grateful for and something that's really awesome about modern filmmaking is that I do have, like the perfect multi-tool for filmmaking.
Right there.
I'm talking about all the time.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
That's awesome. No excuses, right? In terms of, no excuses. If you're somebody who has an idea for a film and you want to make it.
The last film that I was thinking these two over here, we were using a Sony A77, but the camera was bugged out, so it could only register like 10% of the battery at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So our battery was like, for the camera was like 5 minutes, which is not ideal. So we switched in between using that and using my friend Malcolm, next to me, his iPhone X, and the outcome was really
It
good.
worked out.
That's good.
Excellent. Somebody else had a question in the back?
I was just going to ask about, talking a little bit about the importance of always having things to pitch, having ideas to talk about, and, how you maybe keep track of that for yourselves as filmmakers, and do you have a journal, or how do you kind of...
I have a folder on my laptop called Development, and I've got many folders in it, and every time I have an idea or somebody sends me a script or somebody pitches me something, I create a place for it to live so I don't lose it, and I kind of revisit that every once in a while. How about you? How do you handle?
I don't really, I'm just working on one film, and as a male, I can only concentrate on one thing at a time. I can't multitask. So I'm not thinking about the next thing. I'm focused on the one I'm doing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Right here.
Even though phones would do us great for high school, once we actually start going into that field, phones aren't really going to help us because they're going to be like, you use a phone to record stuff, you use your phone to edit, while if you use a professional camera and microphone and a professional editing software, more places will hire you fast because you know how to work those items, because they'd be like, you use your phone?
That's true, and that's important to your point back there. That's a part of their required curriculum, to expose you guys to these kinds of cameras and audio equipment and editing software so that you can understand that. We're just saying with the phones, if you want to do that also, to learn
Down and dirty, if you just want
how to keep moving forward with filmmaking, and learn the steps and learn how to get a beginning, a middle, and end. I think both things are equally important. Back there?
And just going off the idea with the phones, you
Uh-huh.
can kind of use it as leverage. So you can enter into a film festival specifically for iPhones.
and they'll offer some type of prize, sometimes it's equipment, software, sometimes it's money. You use that
That's
to invest
that's
in
excellent.
Your projects and production, so you use that to get better equipment,
Yep.
software, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So that's what.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent idea and suggestion.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So I feel as though like not everybody has iPhone, and if you
True.
have iPhones, don't have enough storage in their phones.
So not all iPhones have like you can't change the aperture, you can't change.
Yeah.
And my phone broke.
You can't change.
Like I don't know what to do. That's what I pay for a project.
But if you're on a team, maybe one person on the team has one that you can use.
Last time we used my phone for a film, they broke it.
Okay.
I had to pay for it too, but they broke it.
Oh, well, that's important. That's something important to think about that I didn't think of.
Y'all say use our phones, but if we using our phones, say if we making a film, if we needed something like a full set.
Yeah.
Use this.
Yeah.
Now another person has an advantage.
That's true. That is a good point. Yeah.
All right, we're calling it a day. Nice to see you guys. Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck on your films. Can't wait to see them.